Let's talk about 26 new books releasing in 2026. This list is primarily going to be horror, litfic, thrillers, and things related to those genres is usually what I post on this channel. Let's get right into it. First is The Caretaker. The Caretaker is about a woman who accepts a job on Craigslist to house sit for this man who has a house in the Oregon woods. As someone who has gotten, actually, I think multiple jobs on Craigslist, this book really resonates with me. And of course she's in this isolated cabin, creepy things start happening. It's a mystery thriller horror book, so good if you like isolation horror. This might be a good option for you, or horror in the woods, secluded cabin type thing. All right, I gotta put my hair up, this is getting serious. Number 2 is Mother Faker. Mother Faker is a book about a woman who pretends to be pregnant to get maternity leave, paid maternity leave from her job for 9 months, and then plans to kind of bounce after that and just disappear. This book is a comedy. I don't know if it's going to veer into dark comedy. It seems like maybe it could kind of head in that direction, but I think it seems like fun. I think it could be a good palate cleanser between other reads that are maybe a little bit heavier, so I'm going to pick this one up for sure. Book 3 is Not Your Final Girl. Not Your Final Girl is a slasher book. It's about a group of people that went to high school together and they're at a reunion at a isolated cabin in the woods, some kind of classic slasher setup. And I think it seems like it'll be a fun book. I don't remember if it comes out before the summer, but I think it could be great for like when slasher summer kind of starts and people start recommending for that. I think this would be a great read for that time of year. 4 is Holy Boy. Holy Boy is translated from Korean, and it's about these 4 women who are obsessed with a K-pop star and they kidnap him. I'm trying to read more translated fiction this year. It's on my list of bookish goals for the year, so I think this will be a really interesting one to pick up to work towards that goal, but also it sounds really interesting, and I think books about like parasocial relationships, especially in K-pop, totally fascinate me. So this will be really, I think, cool if you're interested in the idea of parasocial relationships, of celebrity, of fame, and all that kind of stuff. Could be really interesting. Number 5 is Tradwife. Tradwife is by the same author who wrote Serial Killer Support Group, if you read that. But Tradwife is about a woman who is as the title kind of implies, a like hashtag Tradwife influencer. She like lives on a farm with her husband. The only thing that she doesn't have to kind of complete the Tradwife lifestyle is a baby. And because of the strained relationship she has with her husband, she doesn't think she's gonna have a baby anytime soon. So she actually goes to I think a well on her property and basically wishes for a baby. And this being appears at night to her that grants her this wish. But not as all as it seems, and there is something sinister. She starts kind of craving meat a little more than she did before, so I think this is going to be a great horror read, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think if you like kind of pregnancy horror, seems like maybe some body horror, and then commentary on sort of this whole trend of like trad wives, I think this is a good pick for you. Number 6 is Cruelty Free. Cruelty Free is about a woman who was a famous actress but has sort of fallen out of the public eye after her daughter was kidnapped from their home and that crime was kind of never solved. At the beginning of Cruelty Free, she's decided she wants to come back to LA and start her own skincare brand. And she will do anything to make this skincare brand successful, like literally anything. And in the background, you kind of get more and more information about her child's kidnapping and what happened there, and the mystery behind that kind of plays a role in her present life as well. Number 7 is Hooked. Hooked is by the same author who wrote Butter, which is a totally fantastic read. It was a 5-star read the year that it came out for me, so I'm really looking forward to Hooked. Hooked is about a very lonely woman who becomes obsessed with this woman who she follows on Instagram, who's a famous influencer. And she actually orchestrates a meeting between the two of them, and they become friends. But obviously as things sort of start to come out, things start to go awry, and it seems like a really interesting book about like obsession and again like parasocial relationships and loneliness that I think will be really interesting. If Butter was any indication, then I think this will be fantastic. 8 is He's the Devil. He's the Devil is looks like a comedy, kind of dark comedy book about a sort of do-gooder, like goody two-shoes guy who gets a new roommate, and he believes that new roommate is like actually possessed by the devil. And I think it looks like it's going to be like kind of a funny, entertaining little book. If you're looking for something that's sort of like comedy, horror, I think this will be a good one for 2026. Number 9 is Molka. Molka is by the same author who wrote The Eyes Are the Best Part, which was also a 5-star book for me the year that it came out, which I believe at this point would have been 2024 or 2023. Either way, it was a 5-star book. It's fantastic. I imagine this one will have the same kind of like body horror elements to it, but this one actually takes place in Korea and is told from the point of view of a guy who works IT at a big company. He has access to all the video feed in the building, so he kind of watches a lot of the women, but he watches one woman in particular more than the others. And as her life sort of starts to fall apart, he becomes more and more obsessed with her. And she, meanwhile, is like seeing her sister's ghost. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. There's a lot going on in the synopsis, and I'm really excited to see how it all comes together, and I have every faith that it will, because The Eyes of the Best Part was fantastic. Body horror, revenge, weird girl book. I think this is one of my like most anticipated books for this year for sure. 10 is Waiting on a Friend. Waiting on a Friend is about a lesbian who can see ghosts. It takes place in 1984, so it's set during the AIDS crisis. And she is experiencing sort of a lot of distress in this book because the one ghost that she can't see is one of her friends, her closest friends, who died of AIDS. So she's sort of dealing with that, not being able to see him, and also at the same time dealing with her and her friends fighting for queer rights in New York in the midst of the AIDS crisis, of the way that queer people are being treated during the AIDS crisis in the United States. This book, I think, like strikes a really like personal note for me, because one of my first jobs was in a queer community, and a lot of the people that I worked with had survived the AIDS crisis but lost partners or friends, and hearing them talk about their experiences was really, really gut-wrenching. And hearing how they were treated, how they were spoken to, how they were behaved around is just like really horrific. And the way that it still kind of affected them to this day, to like the 2000s when I was working there, and I'm sure still to today, was really striking to see, and to have that experience, to know people that survived that and hear their stories has always been something I'm very grateful for, in a way. Obviously not grateful that all of that happened, but grateful that I am able to hear that sort of oral history from them has been really impactful in my life, and in my kind of queer journey. So especially like knowing kind of queer history and like listening to people that have survived these things. So it was really impactful for me, that sort of period of my life. And so I think this book is going to be really heavy, but I think it's really important to understand these moments in history and how they carry through to today. And yeah, so that's my little personal note for this one. I'm really looking forward to this one this year. Number 11 is Muñeca. Muñeca is about a woman who dabbles in witchcraft, and when she hears that there's a local heiress who's fallen mysteriously ill and that there's a reward for making her better or healing her, then she decides to kind of throw her hat in the ring and try to lift a curse off of this heiress, because she believes this illness is actually a curse. This is a sapphic Latina horror book, so very exciting to add it to my list this year. I'm always trying to read more Latina horror, more queer horror, and so to have both at the same time is great. 12 is The Summer Fun Massacre. The Summer Fun Massacre is like, as it seems to appear to be, is kind of obviously like a summer camp slasher. It takes place with the first sort of slasher event happening in the 80s, and then when the camp reopens in the 90s, another slasher event happening, and there are some characters that go between the two that have experienced both, that are around for both events. I have told myself that I'm not going to read any more Craig DeLuey, because I love his premises so much, but I never actually really like any of the books that he's written, which is like such a disappointment, because like episode 13, totally great premise, right? How to Film a Horror Movie and Survive, I think, is one of his other ones that I also thought seemed like a great premise, and then I just really didn't enjoy it. And so I told myself maybe it's time to retire him, but here we are. He's gotten me again. I am going to read it. So Craig, you've won this round. But maybe in 2027, it'll be the year that I retire him finally. We'll see. We'll see how this book goes. 13 is Spoiled Milk. Spoiled Milk is about a girls' school. It takes place in like the early 20th century, and it starts off with one of the girls falling to her death, and the group of her friends are convinced that it's their French teacher who's the one who did it, and they are trying to figure out how to prove that she's the one who had killed their friend. This is a sapphic gothic horror. It is a historical horror book if you like things that are historical. It is, I believe, set in England. I think it's trying to say some things about sort of colonialism. So I'm enjoying it. I'm reading the arc right now, so I think that this is going to be a good kind of solid sapphic horror for this year. Halfway there, okay. Number 14 is Japanese Gothic. Japanese Gothic takes place in two timelines. There's a contemporary timeline with a college kid who has killed his college roommate, but he does not remember doing it. He doesn't remember how it happened. He doesn't remember anything about it. And he kind of flees to one of his dad's houses in Japan. The other timeline is set in the past. It's a woman she's a samurai, and she is struggling because her father has come home from war, and he seems like a completely different person. And so she's sort of struggling to figure out what happened to him while he was gone. And meanwhile, she starts seeing this contemporary to today, like our today, person in the window of her house. And in the contemporary timeline, the man who is suspected of killing his college, who killed his college roommate, is seeing a ghostly samurai woman outside. So it's kind of like these two timelines, but they're overlapping. It'll be interesting to see how it's done. And this is the same author who wrote Bat Eater, which was my top read for 2025. So I'm like so psyched for this. Bat Eater is fantastic. You should pick it up immediately. And when this one comes out, hopefully it's another one to pick up immediately, because I have a lot of hope for this one. Number 15 is I Will Kill Your Imaginary Friend for $200, which is like such a humdinger of a title. I don't know why I said humdinger. I've never said that in my life. Anyway, it's about a man who can see imaginary friends, and he has sort of a job where he will kill your imaginary friend if for people that have outgrown them, or it's followed them to adulthood but they don't want it anymore. And this book is set where he meets an 8-year-old who wants him to kill her imaginary friend because her imaginary friend has started like causing problems in her life, and so he has to figure out how to do that. I think this is like a dark comedy, and it just looks like it's gonna be pretty funny. So, and it's such an interesting concept, such an original concept that it's based on. So I'm definitely gonna pick this one up. The Hitch actually just is coming out on January 13th. So as of this video, that is in 2 days as of filming this video. The Hitch is about a woman who takes her dog and her nephew to the park. She's babysitting her nephew for the week. It's a big responsibility. It's the first time she's babysitting him alone. And she takes her nephew and her dog to the park, and her dog kills a corgi in front of her nephew, and then she becomes convinced that her nephew is actually being possessed by the spirit of that corgi. It's funny, it's quirky, I really enjoyed it. I don't know, I'll do a full review of it later, but I think it's like a fun read. I absolutely devoured it. I read it in a day. I got it as an ARC, so I just finished it to write a review, and I will do a longer review on it on my TikTok probably. But another very like original premise, and just like sucks you in kind of read. So I would pick this one up, give it a shot. Number 17 is Fabulous Bodies. Fabulous Bodies is by Chuck Tingle, who wrote also Bury Your Gaze and Camp Damascus, which are two other horror books that I love. He also wrote like a ton of like shorter books that you probably know, they're kind of like notorious online before he became like a novelist, an official like novelist. Although maybe you could argue that what he was writing before were novels in their own right, at least novellas. Anyway, so this is a book about a woman who is a part-time fashion influencer, part-time body snatcher, and she gets a job to snatch the body of this like major musician, kind of queer icon, and everything goes according to plan until she's bringing him to wherever she needs to bring him, and he wakes up. And I think it's sort of like a road trip, comedy, horror kind of thing, so it looks like it'll be fun. Chuck Tingle's sort of always fun to read. So if you liked Camp Damascus, if you liked Bury Your Gaze, if you liked any of his other literature from before those days, or I think he still kind of concurrently wrote some with his other novels, then this could be a good pick for you, and another good one for like queer literature for 2026. 18 is For Human Use. For Human Use is a book about modern dating. It is based on the premise of a dating app that matches you, instead of with a living person, with a dead person. And beyond that, I don't really know that much about it. I think it's saying kind of things about modern dating and loneliness and, you know, things like that we're all sort of contending with, or that a lot of us are contending with in the world today, whether we are partnered or not. And I just thought it sounded like such an interesting premise. I think it's more of a litfic read. It's not really like horror as far as I can tell, but I'm definitely going to pick it up and just see what it has to say. 19 is You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom. You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom is a book about a girl whose grandfather passes away. She goes to his house where all of her family is sort of congregated to hear his will and like figure out what's going to happen and how he's going to pass down his like very significant wealth to who in the family. And when they get there, they find out that their grandfather has left a note basically saying like, one of you is actually the devil, and I made a deal with the devil for my wealth X amount of years ago, and the rest of you need to figure out which one of you it is, and that person will get the inheritance. So I think this seems like it'll be fun. I love a good family inheritance, kind of all of them are brought back together into like a room and everyone's fighting. I kind of like love that kind of Knives Out type vibe, and like all the family drama. So that seems like what this book is going to be about. 20 is Obstetrics. Obstetrics is about a woman who has performed the last legal abortion in the state that she lives in, and she gets kidnapped by a fundamentalist cult. And so then she has to figure out how to escape this cult, and also how to kind of help and try to assist the women that are a part of this cult, that are also struggling under the fundamentalist aspects of this cult, and figure out what to do with them and how to help them. It seems like it'll be interesting, especially in the time period that we're living in now. It's a tough topic to write about because it is so heavy right now for so many people, so I'm interested to see how it goes and how it's written about. But an important topic to write about, so definitely on my list for this year. Number 21 is The Hill in the Dark Grove. The Hill in the Dark Grove is a Welsh book. It's about a man and a woman who live in the Welsh countryside, and they stumble upon the remains of these Neolithic ruins, and they accidentally wake something up. This is a folk horror novel, and I had on my list to read more of those this year, so I'm definitely going to be picking this one up. 22 is I Love You, Don't Die. I Love You, Don't Die is written by the same woman who wrote Chlorine, if you read Chlorine, which is about a girl turning into a mermaid in sort of body horror way. This book, I think, is less body horror and more literary fiction. At least that's like the vibe that I'm getting. It's about a woman who is obsessed with death and the idea of death, and then she starts dating, and then those two things get sort of complicated and intertwined, and it's about death and relationships and mortality and relationships. And so it might be kind of heavy and more literary than horror, but I want to give it a shot because I liked Chlorine so much. Wife-Shaped Bodies is a literary horror book about a world where women and wives in particular have mushrooms all over them, like they grow mushrooms out of their bodies, and they're told that they have to stay inside and that's disgusting and there's something wrong with their bodies because of these mushrooms. But the main character slowly starts to make friends with another wife in the neighborhood, and they start to kind of realize that maybe things shouldn't be that way and that's not how they want the world to be anymore. This book looks like a really interesting examination of the way that we talk about and handle like women's bodies and womanhood and in contemporary modern society, so I think it'll be really interesting. 24 is Yesteryear. Yesteryear is about a woman who runs a social media account that's sort of like hashtag pioneer life, like hashtag living in the country, hashtag like I farm, they have a farm and they do their own eggs and all that kind of stuff. But then one day she wakes up like actually in like ye old times, and she has to figure out how to really live in those times. So I think this is another book about social media and the way things appear on social media and how people kind of frame things. So I love a good book about social media commentary. I know some people hate it. Some people hate when books like mention like Instagram or TikTok or whatever. I like kind of live for it. So I think this is like exactly up my alley for this year. 25 is Mom Brain. Mom Brain is about a woman who goes on a retreat to Hawaii that's supposed to be a mom retreat. And on this retreat, they're told that they can be part of this program that's supposed to fix quote unquote mom brain. And she has to decide if she wants to do it or if there's maybe something more sinister going on behind this program, or if it's something that needs to even be done at all. So I love a good motherhood horror book, kind of sinister company horror book. So this kind of combines those two into something that I think could be really cool. And number 26, our last book I'm recommending in this video, is Evil Genius. Evil Genius is a book about a woman becoming more and more unhinged. It's about her relationship with her husband, and I think the summary implies like pretty heavily that she's gonna kind of like take care of him. So I think this could be a really good addition to the unhinged woman sort of oeuvre that's out there. So that's it. That's 26 books that are coming out in 2026 that I'm sort of keeping an eye on. There's obviously so many more than this, and I had to narrow a list down out of a much like larger collection. But I will continue to post through the whole year, so you will stay updated, hopefully monthly, on books that are coming out and books you should keep an eye out for. If you're planning on picking any of these up, let me know. Let me know of any that I missed that you want to maybe see on the next list, or that you want to just drop in the comments for people that look at the comments of these videos, if there are any of you out there. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.